The Valorian dawn was dying, and everyone aboard knew it. Commander Thexelar stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed in a gesture of resigned defeat. The massive colony ship had been limping through space for 3 cycles now, ever since the cooling system catastrophically failed near the Helix Nebula. 17,000 souls, Valorians, Kresh, Mindari, even a handful of the crystalline Shora, all slowly cooking as the ship's internal temperature climbed degree by degree. Engineering reports another failure, his second officer reported. Her scales dulling with stress. The repair drones can't navigate the ventilation shafts. Too many collapsed sections. Thexler's mandibles clicked in frustration. The vents were the only way to access the cooling system's core regulators. But they were narrow, winding, and now partially crushed from the initial malfunction. His people were too large, the Kresh too bulky. Even the slender Shora couldn't phase through twisted metal. That's when the human child walked onto the bridge. She was small, even by human standards, perhaps 8 of their solar cycles old. Her name was Maya, daughter of the human engineering consultant who died during the initial cooling failure. She'd been quiet since then, kept company by the other refugees in the residential sectors. "I can fit," she said simply, looking up at the towering commander with brown eyes that held no fear, only determination. Thexelar's translator implant struggled with her high-pitched voice. "Child, this is not, I'm small. I can crawl through the vents." She held up a data pad, her father's, he realized. "Dad showed me the ship schematics. I know where to go." The bridge fell silent. Every species present knew the vents were a death trap, hot enough to blister skin, filled with sharp edges and toxic coolant leaks. To send a child? Absolutely not, Thexler began, but Maya was already pulling off her jacket. "People are dying," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "My dad died trying to fix this. I'm not letting everyone else die too." And before anyone could stop her, she'd opened the vent access panel and disappeared inside. The heat hit Maya like a physical wall. Sweat immediately beaded on her forehead as she crawled forward, her father's data pad strapped to her wrist, its dim light showing the way. The metal beneath her palms was almost too hot to touch, but she'd wrapped her hands in her jacket sleeves. "Maya?" Commander Thexlar's voice crackled through the emergency comm bead in her ear. "Please return to the bridge." "Can't," she grunted, squeezing through a particularly narrow section. Already halfway there, that was a lie. She'd barely made it 20 meters. But she could hear something ahead, a rhythmic clanking that matched the fault indicator on her dad's notes. The primary coolant valve, the one he'd been trying to reach when the explosion happened. She crawled for what felt like hours, left at Junction 7 Blue, straight through the collapsed section. She had to turn sideways an inch forward while metal scraped her shoulders. Down through a vertical shaft where she had to brace her back against one wall and her feet against the other, sliding down into darkness. Her hands were bleeding. She couldn't feel her knees anymore. The heat was making her dizzy. "Maya, your vital signs are critical," a new voice said. Dr. Jenna, the Shora medical officer. "Please, come back." "Almost there," Maya whispered. And this time it was true. The primary valve chamber opened before her. In the dim light of her data pad, she could see the massive regulator and the twisted panel that had jammed it closed. Her father's tools were still there, scattered from the blast. Maya's hands shook as she picked up the plasma wrench. It was heavy, designed for Valorian hands, but she braced it against her shoulder the way her dad had taught her during their Saturday workshop sessions. "Okay, Dad," she whispered. "Just like you showed me." She began to work. On the bridge, Thexelar watched the temperature readings with his heart in his throat. The human child had been in the vents for 6 hours. Medical said she should have passed out 4 hours ago. But still, her vital signs continued. Weak, thready, but persistent. Then impossibly, the coolant pressure gauge flickered. "Commander," someone shouted. "The main valve, it's opening!" Throughout the Valorian dawn, coolant began flowing again. Temperature readings started to drop. Alerts silenced one by one as systems came back online. And in the deepest, hottest section of the ship's mechanical heart, a small human child collapsed across a plasma wrench, her mission complete. They found her 2 hours later, barely conscious. Dr. Jenna's team rushed her to medical, treating burns, dehydration, and exhaustion. For 3 days, she drifted in and out of consciousness while 17,000 beings held their collective breath. When Maya finally woke, Commander Thexlar was sitting beside her bed, all forearms folded in respect. "The ship purrs now," he said softly. "Because you crawled through every meter of duct until you made it so." Maya smiled weakly. "Dad would have wanted everyone safe. Your father would be proud." Thexlar stood, then performed the Valorian bow of deepest respect, something he'd never done for any being of lesser rank. As are we all. Later in the crew logs, he would write, "Today I learned why humans are feared across the galaxy, not for their weapons or their wars, but for their terrifying, beautiful refusal to accept that anything is impossible, especially when someone they love is at stake." The Valorian dawn sailed on, its vents humming peacefully, carrying 17,000 souls toward their new home, and one small human hero who'd refused to let them down.